I've seen this before. Not the moment, the pattern. They're already here, not arriving, placed, spread just far enough apart, close enough to close in. No one looks at him. They pass, shift, speak around him, but never to him. It's precise. They don't need to speak anymore. They already know where to stand. There, two of them, not together, but not apart, facing the same direction, waiting for the same thing. One of them moves, not toward him, past him, close enough to reach him, but doesn't. That's the signal. Another adjusts, a step forward, then still again. No hesitation, no correction. This was decided before they arrived. More of them now, different paths, same destination. They don't rush, they don't slow, they just
tighten
arrive
in increments so small
nothing.
they would pass
No
for
one steps in.
coincidence if
No
you
one
weren't
breaks
already
it.
watching
No
for
one
it.
stops it.
A step
This
taken
is where
without
it happens.
urgency.
A pause held just a fraction longer than needed. A shift of weight that changes nothing on its own and everything when repeated across the space around him. Until the open street he is walking through begins to behave differently. Not closing, not crowding, but narrowing in a way that leaves no visible edge and no clear point of control. One passes behind him with the same steady pace, close enough that the space between them disappears for a moment and then returns. Not enough to startle, not enough to draw attention, but enough to mark position. And as that gap opens again, another figure adjusts ahead, not turning, not signaling, simply occupying the exact line that leads forward, so that the path continues to exist while no longer being free. He continues without hesitation, the same stride, the same direction, the same unbroken movement that suggests nothing has changed. And that is the second pattern, because nothing about his movement reacts to the presence forming around him. Nothing slows, nothing redirects, as if the route he is taking has already been accepted as the only route available. A step to the left creates space that did not exist before. A step to the right removes an alternative that would have allowed deviation. And between those two adjustments, the direction forward becomes inevitable without ever appearing forced, the kind of control that does not need to show itself because it has already accounted for every movement before it happens. Another moves across his path, not blocking, not confronting, simply crossing at the precise moment required to delay him by a fraction, just enough for the alignment behind him to complete. And by the time that fraction passes, the space he has come from no longer belongs to him, filled without rush, sealed without contact, held in place by people who do not look at each other and do not need to. From a distance it remains ordinary, the movement of a city continuing as it always does, but within it the pattern is fixed, repeating through different bodies and different positions, each one arriving at the same conclusion through separate motion, until the entire space begins to act as a single structure that guides without pressure and contains without force. They are not closing in, not in the way it would be seen or felt, but the distance between them is no longer random, no longer shifting, each gap measured and held, each position maintained just long enough to support the next adjustment, so that movement continues while options disappear. A figure ahead slows by a fraction that would be invisible, if not for what follows. Another aligns just behind, and between those 2 points the line forward compresses again. Not enough to stop him, only enough to ensure that he continues exactly where they intend. The timing precise, the placement exact, the result unavoidable. He steps through without resistance, because there is nothing to resist. No obstruction, no confrontation, only a path that remains open and therefore must be taken. And as he moves through it, the positions behind him settle into place, each one holding just long enough to prevent reversal, each one releasing only when the next has already secured its position. A hand lifts briefly to adjust fabric that does not need adjusting. A head turns slightly, without searching for anything. Small actions that carry no meaning on their own, yet mark the rhythm that everything else follows. Signals without being signals, confirmations without being seen. More of them now, arriving from different directions with no sign of urgency, entering the space already formed, and fitting into it without disruption, each one taking a position that has been left for them, not assigned, not indicated, simply understood, as if the arrangement existed before any of them stepped into it. The distance between him and the point ahead shortens, in a way that feels natural. the kind of shortening that comes from continued movement rather than imposed change. Yet every step forward removes another option, another direction, another possibility that might have existed if this had not already been decided. They do not rush the moment, because it is already fixed, and rushing would only reveal it. So instead they hold it, maintaining the same pace, the same spacing, the same quiet coordination that allows everything to happen without drawing attention, until the space itself becomes the mechanism that carries him forward. Behind him there is no opening left, only movement that appears continuous while serving a single purpose, and ahead there is still a path, still a direction, still a way forward that remains unquestioned, because it has not been visibly altered, and between those 2 points he continues exactly as expected. This is where the control becomes complete, not because it closes, but because it no longer needs to, the structure holding itself through balance rather than force, every position accounted for, every movement anticipated, every outcome already set in place. They have not stopped him, they have not touched him, they have only ensured that there is nowhere else for him to go. The route carries him forward without deviation, the same steady pace maintained through streets that have already shaped his direction, yet the space opening ahead does not belong to the path he should be following, widening sooner than expected, unfolding into a structure built for spectacle rather than decision, where the scale of the place absorbs movement instead of organizing it, allowing bodies to enter without forming order while still holding them within a single contained space. They anticipated this, not in movement alone but in placement, arriving ahead of him in intervals that leave no trace of coordination, each one entering through a different approach and settling into position without pause, without adjustment, as if the space itself had been prepared to receive them, their presence distributed across the interior in a pattern that does not reveal itself when seen at once, only when followed from one position to the next. No formal arrangement takes shape, no gathering that would signal intent, only individuals occupying points that appear incidental until their alignment begins to hold, each distance measured without being marked, each angle maintained without correction, so that the room fills without ever appearing full, leaving just enough openness to remain unremarkable while removing any space that could break the structure forming within it. He crosses the threshold without hesitation, because there is nothing at the entrance that demands it, no barrier, no interruption, no indication that the space ahead has already been defined in ways he cannot see. And as he steps inside, the movement around him adjusts in increments that carry no weight individually, yet combine into a shift that alters the entire field he is moving through. One passes along the far side, not approaching, not retreating, simply repositioning to extend the line that now forms ahead of him, while another settles behind, at a distance that prevents reversal without appearing to close it, each adjustment reinforcing the last, each placement completing a portion of the structure that continues to assemble without drawing attention. The interior does not behave like the place it replaces, the absence of familiar order removing expectation while preserving continuity, so that movement continues without interruption, even as direction becomes fixed, the wider space allowing them to distribute themselves more precisely, holding positions that would not be possible in narrower streets, extending control through distance instead of pressure. A figure near the center shifts by a fraction, enough to redirect the line forward without altering its appearance. Another aligns along the side to remove the last remaining angle that would allow deviation, and between those two positions the path ahead becomes singular, maintained not by force, but by the absence of alternatives that no longer exist once movement continues. He proceeds exactly as before, because nothing has required him to do otherwise, the continuity of his motion preserved by the structure surrounding him, each step forward confirming the arrangement that has already been set, each moment passing without resistance, reinforcing the inevitability of where it leads. More enter the space, not in groups, but in sequence, each arrival timed to coincide with the positions already held, filling the remaining intervals without disrupting the balance that has been established, their presence absorbed into the pattern without expansion, the structure tightening without appearing to contract. No voices rise, no signals pass between them, only the repetition of small contained movements that serve as confirmations rather than instructions, a turn of the head that completes alignment, a shift of stance that maintains spacing, gestures that carry no meaning outside the pattern they support, yet define it entirely within. The exits remain visible, unchanged in their position, unchanged in their form, yet the space leading to them no longer connects to him, occupied in a way that does not obstruct but prevents approach. Each path outward held by someone who does not appear to guard it, yet does not leave it open. He advances toward the center without being directed, guided by the continuity of the path that remains in front of him, the absence of interruption preserving the illusion of choice while removing its existence, every step taken confirming a direction that has already been decided before he entered. The room holds steady around him, not closing, not shifting abruptly, but maintaining a balance that allows the structure within it to remain intact. Each position sustained just long enough to support the next, each movement contained within limits that preserve the overall arrangement without revealing its purpose. Distance continues to shorten, not through pressure, not through pursuit, but through the absence of space that once existed, and no longer does, the intervals between them fixed now, no longer adjusting, no longer searching for position, only holding what has already been established. There is no moment where it becomes visible, no point at which the arrangement declares itself, only the gradual completion of something that has been forming since before he arrived, carried through movement that never appears to change, until nothing remains unfinished. The space around him no longer adjusts, because every position that needed to shift has already settled into place. Each distance fixed now with a precision that removes variation entirely. The movement that once appeared fluid, resolving into a structure that holds without effort, without visible reinforcement, sustained by the balance of positions that no longer need correction. He continues forward, because forward is the only direction that remains intact. The path ahead preserved in its shape, while everything behind and beside him has already been claimed, not closed, not obstructed, simply occupied in a way that removes access without announcing it. Each exit still visible, still present, yet no longer connected to him through any uninterrupted line. A figure stands where a turn would have been possible, not guarding it, not acknowledging it, only existing within it so completely that the space itself ceases to function as an option, while another holds the distance behind him, with the same stillness, ensuring that what has been passed cannot be returned to, the continuity of movement maintained while reversal disappears. No one converges abruptly, no tightening that would reveal intent, only the absence of space that once allowed deviation, each interval between them measured and held so consistently that the pattern no longer needs to change, the structure complete enough now to sustain itself through stillness rather than adjustment. He does not test the edges, because there are no edges presented to him, only continuation, only the same forward motion that has carried him this far, the environment shaped in a way that removes the need for decision, every step already aligned with what has been arranged ahead. The room absorbs the movement without disturbance, its openness no longer offering freedom, but containing it, the wider space allowing them to hold positions that extend beyond immediate proximity, control maintained through distance rather than pressure, each person occupying a point that supports the whole without drawing attention to their role within it. Another arrives at the far side, not altering the pattern, only reinforcing it, filling the last remaining interval that could have allowed imbalance, their presence completing a line that now stretches unbroken across the space. Every approach accounted for, every direction stabilized. There is no signal given, no moment that initiates change, because change is no longer required, the transition from movement to containment having already occurred, the structure now existing in a state where nothing further needs to be adjusted, only held. He reaches the center without resistance, because resistance was never part of this. The absence of obstruction preserving the illusion of freedom, while removing its reality. Each step forward confirming what has already been established, each moment passing without interruption, reinforcing the inevitability of where he stands now. The distance between him and the nearest figure no longer shifts, no longer expands or contracts, fixed in a way that prevents entry without preventing presence, close enough to define the boundary, far enough to avoid contact, the balance maintained perfectly across every position surrounding him. No one looks to confirm it, because there is nothing left to confirm. Each person already aligned with the structure they form, each placement holding without effort, the entire arrangement sustained through stillness that replaces movement entirely. Behind him, the path is gone, not removed, not altered, only filled, the space occupied in a way that prevents return without ever appearing to close, each position maintained with the same quiet precision that has defined every step leading to this point. Ahead, there is no further direction, only space that does not extend into movement, the center holding him without containing him physically. The absence of paths replacing the need to block them, the environment itself, completing the structure that has been forming since before he entered. The room does not change, because it no longer needs to. The positions within it holding the shape exactly as intended, every distance measured, every angle sustained, every outcome already secured without requiring a single visible action. The movement that carried them into place no longer continues, because nothing remains to be adjusted. Each position held now with a precision that removes variation entirely, the structure sustained through stillness rather than motion, every distance fixed, every angle maintained, the entire space resolved into something that does not need to change again. He stands within it without resistance, not because he has chosen to stop, but because there is no remaining direction that extends beyond where he is now. The path that brought him forward completed, the options that once existed, removed through the same quiet sequence that has shaped every step leading here, until continuation itself becomes impossible without ever appearing to be denied. The figures around him do not close further, because they do not need to, their proximity already exact, each one positioned at the limit required to define the space without collapsing it, close enough to remove entry, distant enough to avoid contact, the balance held perfectly across the structure that surrounds him. No one looks to confirm the moment, because the moment has already been confirmed through placement alone, each person aligned with what has been established, each stance maintained without effort, the entire arrangement existing in a state where nothing further is required to initiate what follows. A shift begins not as a signal, not as a command, but as the first action that belongs entirely to the structure itself. A hand moving with the same controlled timing that has defined every adjustment until now, another responding within the same instant, without needing to observe it. The coordination carried forward without interruption, because it has already been completed in every way that matters. The distance between them collapses in a single continuation of what has already been set. The space that once separated them, ceasing to exist in the moment it is no longer needed. The structure resolving into contact without hesitation and without delay. And then, a hand does not stop. It moves where it was always going to move. Not sudden, not rushed, certain. You see it, the blade, held low, kept close, until it isn't. For a moment it catches the light. That's all it takes. No warning, no hesitation. The inevitable does not arrive. It was already here.